Hi guys, and welcome back to the podcast. I'm your host Indira, and today I'm joined by 16-year-old rising star Phoebe Gill. She was recently crowned the Commonwealth Youth Games champion over the 800 metres, and she also holds the UK under-17 all-time record for both the 8 and 1500. She's a class athlete, but also she's got a great mindset. But before we get into it, if you've been enjoying the show, please be sure to give a rating. Less than 1% of you who listen have rated the show, and it really helps me to keep bringing you guys great guests. All right, let's get into it. Hi, Phoebe. Welcome to the podcast. How's your morning been?
Oh, it's been good, thank you. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to start this.
Yeah, absolutely. Pleasure to have you on. I mean, Phoebe's got some absolutely incredible achievements. If anyone doesn't know already, she's currently holding the all-time record for the 1500 and the 800 at under 17, multiple all-times across the years, multiple UK number ones. So, top class athlete here. And so, Phoebe, can you introduce yourself as an athlete?
I'm Phoebe Gill. I'm 16 years old. I've been running since about year 5, so when I was 10, because my PE teacher pushed me into the sport. I used to be a cross-country runner, but sort of lost the passion for it a bit. I'm not a fan of the long rainy days out and the really hard courses. So I moved on to track, where I found that I ran best. And it's all taken us since then.
Absolutely. I mean, you've got to prioritize what you enjoy at the end of the day. And would you say, if you think on your time in sports so far, what would you say is your biggest lesson learned?
The biggest lesson I've learned is that I am still a young athlete, so it doesn't matter at the end of the day if I slip up once every few races. Each race is a new day. Because I used to get quite pent up when I didn't perform well, especially in cross-country season, and it did affect how I felt about running when I was younger, and probably because I was more immature and didn't have as much experience as I do now. And I'm still an inexperienced athlete. I'm only 16, so I'm just taking each day by its stride and seeing how I develop. And I think lots of young athletes need to find the love for the sport and why they started.
Absolutely. I mean, you've already got the wisdom without the age. So that sets you up well. And so what is your next biggest goal or thing that you hope to achieve?
Well, it's all working up towards the next summer season, I'd say, for short distance goals. I'm trying to build up my strength for some of the international races, because I did have a good summer season, the one that's just passed, going to Trinidad for the Commonwealth Games. And I want to keep performing internationally and hoping getting more at GB Vest, or I haven't even got one GB Vest, so trying to get first Great British Vest would be amazing. And there's Euros, Worlds coming up that I do want to target in my race calendar.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, that is a crazy sort of thing. You competed at the Commonwealths, but still haven't got the GB Vest yet, but that's definitely to come. What is the number one piece of advice you would give to your younger self?
I would say that the number one piece of advice I would give is to prioritize on your mental strength rather than the physical, as you're nurturing your body going into athletics, because I think it's really easy to get caught up on training every day and trying to be the best, and you can get burnt out extremely easily and find that you lose the passion for the sport. And I think we need to remind ourselves why we began running. It's not for winning medals and everything. It's because you love going outside, getting the fresh air. It's such a great stress relief, I find, running. And I hate that when I was younger, I used to find it more as a chore during the long winter seasons, and finding I was only racing because I wanted to win rather than for enjoyment. So I would say that to my young self, I need to focus on the fun parts of running and why I started in the first place.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So much valuable insight in there, guys. And finally, what are some of the topics you feel most strongly about within athletics at the moment?
I feel really strongly about Red S, which I've heard is a key topic amongst this podcast. I'm a young female athlete, and I have experienced some of the symptoms without being educated about the Red S, because I don't think it's massively mainstreamed in the sport. I mean, of course, it's becoming more and more educated about nowadays. But when I was younger, I had no idea about the effects of overtraining on a young woman and men's bodies. And I think it's really important that we balance the nutritional side of running, as long as and make sure that we don't overtrain ourselves at such an early age, because I mean, I've looked into the symptoms of Red S, and it can be really detrimental to your career. I mean, there's lots of stories that we hear about athletes that have had to drop out because of it, and it's something that I experienced. Not to the extent of some people, but I think it's really important. I think it's important that we take care of our bodies whilst we're young female athletes.
Yeah, definitely, absolutely. Such a key topic. And yeah, there's just been, the media's just filled with kind of an increasing number of people coming out and saying, yep, this is what happened to me, this is what was done. So it's definitely a conversation that needs to be continued. And so if we start off, let's build up a picture for our listeners of what your current setup is. So would you be able to walk us through what a typical week of training looks like for you at the moment?
Yep, definitely. I'm definitely an evening trainer. I don't really have that many morning training sessions. I would say that I run about 3 to 4 times a week, and I exercise in total about 6 days a week. I think it's really important to get cross training in there. I always was a swimmer when I was younger, and although I don't swim as much as I used to now, I always integrate it into my training plan. I just think it's really beneficial to my running, and it's also a nice relaxation for the muscles, because it's an unbearing sport. It's not overbearing on the muscles, and getting gym work in there I think is really important. I've started since about last year doing putting more weights on in, and including more gym exercises. I joined a gym program, and I've seen the positive effects in my running performance since then. So yeah, that's a week of my life basically.
Nice. And have you got, maybe how many kind of key sessions do you do in a week? And have you got any examples of perhaps a favorite session of yours?
I think I would do about 2 key running sessions on average a week, which are on Tuesdays and Thursdays for me. And I'd say that my favorite running session is probably 300 to 200 meters, with 45 seconds in between, which is always my pre-race session for an 800 meters. Go out full speed, see how your legs feel, and see how you're going to race the next day. This was a session I did all the time in summer season, and I love it.
Yeah, sounds like a nice, short, sharp, fast one. Quite lactic heavy.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Especially the last 100 meters of the 200.
Yeah, I can imagine. Would you say that you're someone who is perhaps a little bit more on the middle distance side compared with long distance side, or are you still just kind of working through?
Yeah, I definitely, I mean, I prefer middle distance by a long mile. Training wise, I think middle distance sessions are always my focus during the summer season. Winter season, when building more strength and I'm doing more cross country races, I will stick to the longer sessions, but not crazy. I've had lots of sessions that long distance athletes do, and I think I couldn't do that. But no, I've always preferred middle distance to long distance, I'd say.
Yeah. I mean, there's definitely, I feel like people definitely underestimate the amount that almost doesn't need to be done sometimes in running, the value of having rests, making sure you're putting in maximum effort to what you're doing. And on that note, I mean, you mentioned cross training, which is definitely, I guess we could say, a bit of a trending topic. More and more people are moving towards doing it. Is it swimming that you mainly do, or are there other kind of forms of exercise that you incorporate as well?
Yeah, swimming's my main cross training, especially when I'm injured, just because, as I said, I just don't feel heavy after it, and I feel quite relaxed in the muscles. I've always enjoyed swimming. It's also an enjoyment factor for me. Sometimes I want a break from running every day. It is very hard on the muscles running, hitting the ground at the pace that we do. But swimming, yeah, it's my main one. I've tried biking. I hate biking, I'm not gonna lie. I just find it really boring. I used to go on a lot of bike rides with my family, but it's hard to do given where I live. It's quite a busy area. But no, swimming's main one. I think cross training is so important. I think it's easy to get burnt out if you run every day, and you really need to mix it up a bit in your training schedule.
Yeah, definitely. I agree. It is a lot to kind of keep doing the same sport constantly. And as you said, running definitely, it puts a lot of load through the muscles. And for someone who's maybe looking to do some swimming or hasn't incorporated much cross training before, given you've got a bit of a swimming background, have you got a favorite swim session that's a go-to in the pool?
Oh yeah, I've got many swim sessions. I would just recommend looking online for 1 hour beginners sessions. But my favorite one, I always do a 400-meter warm up, and then I do a bit of a drill and kick part of the 1 hour that I do. So I'll do some 50s or 100s, get some speed in there with some 25s. And swimming's great for lung capacity because you're not breathing as much. So I'll focus on doing some lengths, try not to breathe at all, which is very rough because I don't have the best lung capacity anyway. And sometimes I'll get a longer distance session in or do swimming continuously for an hour, especially if I'm injured, because I treat it like how you would see a Sunday long run. But if I don't want to do all those miles, I'll just get in the pool and do it there.
Yeah, definitely. And you mentioned before, going back a little bit, feeling the benefits of the gym. Is there any ways in particular that you felt different since incorporating gym work?
Oh, I feel so much stronger. I had no idea about any gym exercises when I was younger. I mean, up until last year, I'd say I joined it was kind of a club at my local gym, and they make sessions specifically for you. And I've just felt like my technique, I feel stronger. I feel that my stride lengths increase. It's a massive, massive benefit to me. And I really saw the difference in the previous summer season from doing it. So yeah, I'm so thankful that I got into it and started it.
Yeah, definitely. No, that's great to hear. And you mentioned how cross training's been a good alternative in times of injuries. Have you encountered many injuries so far, and what's the situation around that been for you?
I'm not the most injury prone person. I think the worst that I had it was when I was growing. I think a lot of people experience that. I would get the knee pains, some niggles around my ankles. But I think the worst injury I would have is I had one in February. I had a tendon injury in my calf. And it took me out for about 2 weeks, which isn't bad compared to lots of other athletes. It definitely affected my mental health at the time because summer season was coming up and I was resorting, oh gosh, I'm not going to be able to do all these races, all this summer plans that I have is going to go out the window. And I think it's really easy to panic in those times. You just need to take a breath, take it back, do what you need to do, go to your physio, maybe drop down on the mileage a bit and just focus on your body. And I recovered in about 2-3 weeks and I was back to it, and it was all fine. So panic for nothing.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it is a horrible feeling when suddenly it's the unknown. You don't know how long you're going to be out for. You've been enjoying a nice little routine, and next thing you know, something comes along. It's like, nope, can't do that anymore. And I guess as well, you touched on mileage a little bit there. Some of our listeners have been asking about your weekly mileage. Do you have a number for that?
I don't have a number. I can't lie. I'm not the type of runner that counts all my mileage, especially because of the cross training that I do. I don't really have a conversion for that. I just take each day by its stride, do the session that I was given by my coach. I don't like focusing on numbers. It makes me feel a bit pressured, especially if an injury comes around and I'm seeing the drop in mileage and I'm panicking, thinking I'm not going to be as fit. I don't think it's necessarily the most healthy thing for me as an athlete to focus on. I respect other people that do it. It will help them, I'm sure. But no, I'm not the type of person that focuses on weekly mileage.
Now that makes a lot of sense. I'm definitely in the same category as you. I think it's nice to just focus on how you feel, and the number, it's going to happen whether you see it or not. The same results happening, so you may as well not look and save yourself the stress, in my opinion. But yeah, there's a range of different thoughts around that. And so if we turn our attention maybe to your recent performance at the Commonwealth Youth Games, do you want to tell our listeners what happened there for you?
Oh, that that trip is just the most amazing thing that's ever happened. I got after I think it was under 20s nationals, I got the confirmation that I would be racing in Trinidad for 2 weeks for the Youth Commonwealth Games. It been a race that I'd been targeting since the start of the year, I'd say. So I was just so elated when I got the call. I celebrated with my family. It was great. I had to keep it, I had to keep it on the down low for a while because of rules. And I didn't want to, shout it to everyone when it came out because I didn't, I'm not that type of person. But I can't explain how happy I was at the time. And meeting the people in Trinidad was just honestly the best thing in the world for me. I've made so many long-term friendships from the people that I met at Trinidad, which I never thought would happen. When I first went to the holding camp, I was so nervous that I wouldn't get on with the people, that what would they be like. But no, I don't have a bad word about anyone in the running community. I think that it's all such an amazing group of people and people that you can form such good friendships with. And I just had the most amazing 2 weeks out of there. Of course, running how I did was the cherry on top for me. But even if it had gone horribly, the experience alone was just incredible. And it's what running gives to young athletes like that. I don't think without the sport I'd experience anything like that.
Yeah, absolutely. No, that's so great to hear. And just want to follow up on, you mentioned the holding camp. I think a lot of people, myself included, what exactly is going on there?
So it's just a term for the night before you fly out. We all stayed in a hotel together. We had some conferences, some meetings. We talked to athletes that had gone to the competition in the past. It's a chance to meet everyone. Some people already knew one another because you meet people in this sport that we do. But no, it was just a night that we all had before we flew out the next day. And we all played Uno together. We had dinner together. We all chatted, got to know one another. It was a great night.
Sounds like a lot of fun. And 2 weeks as well. Did you get up to many other activities while you're out there, or was it very performance focused?
Yeah, many activities. It's not usual that for international races that you go out for that length of time, that I found out from other people who have been to Euros and stuff. But I thought that when we went out to Trinidad, it would all be performance based. But no, we did so many activities. We were in this massive resort. It was the most luxurious on the island, apparently, according to the localers. But we went into the pool. We met up with, because all the other countries were staying in the hotel as well, so we met up with them. We went to parties, cultural festivals. It was amazing. I've never been to anything like it, and to meet the variety of athletes that I did is just incredible. And we all got a floor of the hotel. That it was great to be in such like a close proximity to one another. And we had like a Team England hub that we'd go and we'd watch the races in. We'd play games, and it was just like we weren't supposed to go into the pool, but we all jumped in anyway. Especially on the last night, once everyone had finished their races, we all just spent the night playing pool games. And we had a day where we went out to the local running club in Trinidad, and we helped out with some of the younger kids there doing sessions. Unfortunately, I was ill for this day, so I went back. But no, it was incredible.
No, that sounds great. And I mean, it would be rude not to go in the pool. If it's there, you've got to test the waters, right? So, and it sounds like you got to experience a wide range of different things. Did anything in particular stand out for you?
I think the main thing that stood out for me was the culture of Trinidad. I wouldn't say that we're the most cultured country here in England, but going out to Trinidad, seeing the opening ceremony was just mind blowing. They had big paper mache dolls. They had fireworks, music. It was amazing. They had singers. And just seeing all the dances and everything, I just was so grateful to be there at the time, because again, like I said, I had never seen anything like it before. Even though it was boiling, it was so hot. I was just so grateful that we were in the Caribbean for the Youth Commonwealth Games rather than, the Isle of Wight, which is where it was supposed to be originally, I think. So I was very happy that I was there.
Wow, no, that sounds like quite an upgrade. Isle of Wight to the Caribbean. So turns out it sounds like it went well in the end. And so the performance itself, for anyone who doesn't know, Phoebe became Youth Commonwealth Games champion over the summer. Do you want to walk us through what was going through your mind and maybe some of the preparation you did in the lead up to your race?
Yeah, so the week before, I was glad that we were out there for 2 weeks because we had to adjust to the heat and to the time frame there. The week before, I worked with Tom Craggs, the endurance coach, who was great for me. We went to the track. We did some sessions there that our coaches had sent to us. It was good to feel the heat and feel the feel of the track. We had to adjust to drinking lots of electrolytes and using ice towels, to try and not lose too much water from our bodies. And then a big part of it was the mental preparation because I was so nervous before that race. I cannot even tell you. I'm the type of person that does get a bit worked up before a race that I really care about, which is a lot. And Trinidad was just the biggest one. I'd felt like I'd been aiming for the entire season. I just really wanted it to go well. So the heats came around and the cooling room was there. I was just trying not to panic. It was boiling, but it wasn't too bad. It was about 31 degrees and it could have been like 35 degrees. I was glad I wasn't running the 3K. And we walked out on the track. Wasn't many people there. There was just one stadium that was filled, but I was still nervous anyway. And it was just a good feel on the track because there was music playing, people were cheering, and I got through the heats comfortably. I was a bit stressed because I went faster than I normally would in a heat, and I was worried that I used too much energy. But I think I was just in optimum form on that on those 2 days, because on the next day I did run a PB in the finals, which I was extremely happy about. And it went to plan. I'd say the race, like, I was really lucky with how it went because I was speaking to Tom the night before. I was venting to him. I was like, I'm so nervous. And he just said, okay, you can take control of the race, just do the 400 meter relax, first 400 meter relax, and then by 350 take control of the race and take a stride out. And then that's what I did, and that's how it went. And I was just happy that it all went to plan. And then afterwards, had to do a drug test, which was the first time that I'd done it, and so that was a bit nerve-wracking. But the medal ceremony was just something, like a feeling that I cannot describe. They did the England flag, they pulled it up, and just, even though there weren't that many people in the audience, just hearing my name called out for that gold medal, I was just so elated and so happy.
Absolutely. And so you should be. And, that is so much pressure. There's so much riding on that. I can't imagine what it would feel like to have that on your head. And I guess you mentioned how, the race went to plan and you're grateful for that. Do you think that it would have been different if something unexpected had happened in the race? Or, what do you think meant that you were able to execute the race as you planned?
Yeah, I think a big part of it was just luck on the day. I mean, I am quite an experienced athlete on the 800 meter, but I'm not like the most. I haven't raced as many races as some older athletes or some other athletes my age. I just think that I had, gone through mental preparation in my head. What if I tripped over? What if somebody cut me up? What if, I didn't tie my laces up right? I'd gone through each outcome in my head and tried to think of a plan around that. But still, like, even if you're thinking it in your head, it can just all fall apart on the day. So I was really lucky with how it came out. And I think that's one of the reasons that athletes get so worked up. I mean, at least I do before a race, because you're thinking about the what ifs, what if it doesn't go the way I want it to go. But I was just, I was so ready for that race, and I just really wanted everything to go to plan. So I was just so happy that it did. And I just tried to take control of the race and get out in front, tried not to let anyone, cut me up. And it worked. So I was happy with that.
Yeah, worked it did for sure. And you mentioned how you ran a PB, which is especially incredible given the conditions of the race as well. What was the time? Do you wanna share the love?
I can't say it's the milliseconds because I don't know, but it was 2:02, which I was so joyful about, because I've been on 2:03 since 2022, and I've been trying to dip below the barrier for so long. And it was just amazing that it happened in a race that I cared about so much. And I think that is probably why I PB'd where I did. And the heat was a big thing, but it wasn't like and a really bad factor. It wasn't like I was doing a long distance race. It's only 2 laps. It might have even helped a bit if you think about the science of it. But the coaches had prepared us so well with ice towels whilst we were doing drills, keeping us in the shade, stocking up on electrolytes. So I was just so happy that everything went to plan and I did get 2:02.
Yeah, definitely. And, an absolutely incredible time. Do you remember any of your thoughts from during that race or any reflections that you'd be able to share?
I remember singing a lot in my head. I always do that to try and calm my nerves, because I get so worked up when I'm on the start line that I will just sing a song in my head. And then I was thinking of strategies in my head. Okay, this girl, she's ahead of me. How am I going to approach this? Just stick on her shoulder. And then the entire time as I was running around, I was like, okay, they're behind you. You have to keep it up. And I didn't realize that that I was making like a bit of a gap, so I was quite safe. But I was just so paranoid the entire time that something, I could fall or somebody would just suddenly sprint out of nowhere and take me. But I wasn't really focused on the fact that I was winning until I crossed the line and realized, and I lifted my arms up, which I regret doing because, I don't know, I found it a bit cheesy, but I was just so relieved that I crossed the line. And I wanted to win, I'm not gonna lie, I did want that gold medal, and it did go to plan, and I was just in my head, I just couldn't believe it. I had so many overwhelming thoughts, and I couldn't focus. It was just such an amazing feeling.
Yeah, I can only imagine. So no, that's great to hear. And I think it's nice how you mentioned having a song in your head. I'm sure that there's plenty of other athletes who have similar kind of rituals and ways of dealing with the stress and the many thoughts that go through someone's head before a race. And you also mentioned drug testing. What was that experience like? What did that involve and how did you find it?
Yeah, so I have never been drug tested before. That was the first time I was drug tested. And I think a big thing is, oh God, what if I've taken something that will come up and I didn't even realize, but Team England did prepare us like massively before this race. We had conferences before going to Trinidad when we were picking up our kit, about drug testing. They told us to download the MediCheck app. They told us about World Dro and to just check everything that you eat, or even like skincare products that you put on, that it will be safe. And so I was just doing that religiously before going into the competition. And then once I was pulled aside to go into the room, I knew that I'd be there for a while because I was quite dehydrated. And the annoying thing about drug testing is you can't just drink gallons of water because your pee will be too dilute. And it has to be a certain concentration to go through. So I was in there for about 2 hours, I'd say. And in like halfway through, I had to go to pick up my medal in the medal ceremony, and they have to constantly monitor you whilst you're in the middle of drug testing. So it was a nerve-wracking time. I was almost as nervous as I was for the race, I was for the drug test, because people that don't know, when you're getting drug tested, you do have to strip in front of somebody and pee in front of them. And I'd say that I went up to do that about 2 times before I actually was able to pee. So I was just standing there a bit awkward. But luckily I will hopefully never have to run into the woman that monitored me, even though she's lovely. It's not the best first meeting. But no, I'm glad that the Youth Commonwealth Games allowed me to experience that, because I know a lot of older athletes in world class competitions will have to experience that. So it's good to get it out of the way when you're younger.
Gosh, that is very intense. And I guess, what are your personal thoughts around that? Do you think it's kind of humane or not humane, but do you think that it's kind of acceptable to have it so, I guess, straight up? Or did you feel a little bit uncomfortable with the process?
I wouldn't say I was. Of course, there's some level of discomfort when you're peeing in front of someone, but I think it is massively necessary, because there is a lot under the behind the scenes drugs and doping going on in various athletes that we don't know about. And I think it's good that the sport is fair, and that you're fair to yourself. You're not cheating yourself when you're doing it. And yes, it can be intense for a 16-year-old to go through that, but I want to continue with athletics until I'm older, hopefully. And it did prep me for how it will be at major competitions. So I am grateful that I experienced that, and now I know, bring a bottle of water with you. You might be in there for a while, don't make eye contact with the person that's watching you. So I know all those tips now, and I do think it was necessary to go through.
No, that's great to hear. And you also mentioned a bit of paranoia around all the different products. I mean, mentioning skincare, it does sound very intense. Is there anything on that list that people might be quite surprised to hear?
To be honest, everything that I used was acceptable. And I was grateful about that. I avidly use loratadine hay fever tablets, and I was really stressed that that wouldn't be accepted, because that's one of my pre-race rituals, because I do get asthma related attacks from pollen. So I was just hoping that would go through. And I am also the person that has a 50-step skincare routine, so I was just really hoping that none of that was negative. But I'd say that if you are going to a global competition, you do need to run through everything that you do and check that, because you could be unknowingly doping, and that you never want to be in that situation, because the repercussions would be immense. So you just want to check everything that you're doing. But luckily nothing was positive for drugs for me, so happy about that.
All 100 steps of the skincare routine intact then, so glowing skin for the future. Brilliant.
Wouldn't say that, yeah.
Okay, and so you mentioned there some asthma related hay fever or hay fever related asthma stuff. Is that something that you suffer with then?
Yeah, so I've suffered with that since I was younger, which was one of the main reasons that I stopped enjoying running, mainly cross country a lot, because I didn't know what was going on with my body. And I was having lots of races that I was dropping out of, with trouble breathing, and I didn't know why. And I was getting really frustrated. Luckily, I got that under control. I had lots of talks with my coaches and, GP appointments. I used to use an inhaler, but stopped that now, because I feel like that was kind of paranoia for me. I used to take 2 puffs before a race when I don't actually have asthma, it's hay fever. But I used to think I did actually have asthma, and I also used to think it used to be panic attacks rather than what it actually was. So there's lots of uncertainties when you're faced with something that you're struggling with and something that's affecting your performance. So I'd just say that you have to constantly keep reviewing it, keep checking your symptoms, and getting checked up about it. So I found hay fever tablets that work for me, and luckily that's not an issue now. But that did have a massive effect on my self-esteem with running when I was younger.
Oh, that's really interesting to hear. And yeah, it's so difficult when there's sort of a factor which is outside of your control and you don't know what's going on. It's the not knowing, which is definitely the hardest part about it. And how did you kind of end up finding what was going on?
Luckily I got it under control. So I went back to cross country. I did take a break a bit because I was dropping out of so many races, which I found was impacting me negatively. And also that's when I found my love for track, funnily enough, because track's so short, it's over with it in 2 or 5 minutes or whatever. And when I was doing an 800-meter race, it was too quick. I couldn't drop out of it, because once you've done 200 meters, you've only got 600 meters left. You might as well stick at it. And so even now that I've got this breathing thing under control, sort of, I've found that love for track has never stopped. And that's one of the main reasons. It's because it's so quick. And I love how fast paced it is, because with cross country, I feel like I get so many negative thoughts telling me to drop out. It's not worth it. You're tired. With track, like I said, once you've done a bit of it, you might as well just stick to it because you've only got a minute left.
Yeah, exactly, guys. Once you've done a bit of it, you may as well stick to it for sure. And that's so great to hear that there was that positive to take away from the situation. And I think you highlight how something which may on the surface seem like a setback or a challenge can often turn out to have, or will always have, some other sort of positive, even if it's not what you're expecting. And so you mentioned as well how happiness and mental well-being and mental strength is something that's important to you as an athlete, and clearly from what you've been saying, that is something that runs very true for you. What led you in the first place, would you say, to primarily, I guess, go through the runner's dip of training becoming a slug and a chore, and then after that we can talk about how you moved on from that place?
Yeah, so I would say that the first time I did feel that training was a chore was when I was struggling with my breathing, because I felt like I was turning up to training just to drop out of it, and I felt like each time I just wasn't enjoying it. And it was a very hard period for me because I love running, and it was sad that I wasn't seeing the results that I wanted. And my resolution to that was to, keep training more and more. Why am I getting the results that I want? Which is really not the right approach to any sort of issue that you're facing, because I was so young at the time and I shouldn't be overtraining that much. But I felt that when I experienced those negative thoughts, I found training so repetitive and just it was a chore to me. And I lost the passion for the sport for about, not that long. It wasn't like it was a year or something. It was about a month. And I spoke to my coach about it, and I took a break from cross country. And then I rekindled the love when I overcame this issue with my breathing, and I found ways to deal with it. And one of the things is, when I was younger, is that I used to just not have a pace in running. I used to just go out really quick, and that would trigger another breathing thing. So I spoke to my coach, and she's like, you can go a slower pace, Phoebe, and I'm so competitive, especially when I was younger. I'd want to be, beating the boys, be up for the best, and I just couldn't sustain that. So once I got, a grip on myself, telling myself, okay, you need to, control your pace, and you need to prioritize your health, and you need to keep taking your allergy tablets. Just try not to see running as this thing that you're doing every day, but this thing that you love, and you're doing it because you want to do it. And I'm a very positive person, I'd say, because my mum's a massive mental health advocate. She does a bit of hypnotherapy, so she helped massively as well. And I found that I rekindled my love for the sport very quickly once I realized that what I was doing was a problem and there was an issue there. So I think you just need to tackle each problem as it comes to you.
Definitely, yeah, tackling each problem as it comes. And you mentioned how it was primarily a shift in mindset that allowed you to find a better relationship, I suppose, with running. Is there any key events or a key event in particular that you can remember where you really felt that switch flick?
I would say that there was a period where I wasn't racing that much. I was just focusing on training and I love the people that I train with. And it was just, it's like going out with friends and, just a social thing. And when I was seeing running as something as social and, just a stretch after school whilst shaking out the stress of the day, that's when I started to realize how much I love running, why I'm doing it. It's because it's how it's a coping mechanism for me at the end of the day. I just love running, and I've met so many people through it that I know and love, that I've known for so long. And that really helped me feel positive about the sport. And I have such an amazing coach and support network behind me at my running club that I didn't want to lose that at all. So I felt that once I focused on the positives of running, I found my love for it again really quickly. And I feel that when I retained that positive mindset, I started to perform better in training and in competitions. So that's why I think mindset is such a big aspect of running. I always am the type of person that sees running as 60-40, with 60 being mental and 40 being physical. I just think mental health is so important because everyone suffers with it, and everyone can find something to cope, and exercise is just a coping thing for struggles.
Yeah, absolutely. So bang on there. And I think, would you agree that happiness and success, I mean, you've said it already, really, they do go very much hand in hand. I know I certainly run a lot of my best sessions off the nights where I've gone to bed at 4 and woken up at 7, just because it's being out with friends. Obviously, that's not optimal, but it's having that time to bond and be happy. And I'd imagine that a lot of people listening to this, there's probably people out there who think, oh, you must be, training all day, every day, not doing anything social. But that's not so much the case for you, is it? You do make sure that you engage with other stuff. Would you be able to maybe share some of the other things in your life that you enjoy doing and that kind of provide balance?
Yeah, so I agree with you. I think happiness is crucial for success in the sport. And I think you're right. It is so easy as an athlete to just dedicate all your time to training and to wanting to be the best. And we can sometimes forget there are other aspects of life, like the social part, school. So what I love just going out with last night I was out with my friend for the night, just taking a break from training and just relaxing after a week of school. I think it's so important, and it is. I think I also really love training with people, because then you're getting the social and the training aspect together. And I think we're humans. We are social creatures. We can't just be a recluse and spend all our time doing sports. It's so easy to just get so pent up about how you're performing and the next competition, and that's when burnout is like so prime, I think, because I'm 16. It's time for me to go out with schoolmates, go to parties, which of course might not be optimal for a training athlete. But I think it's important to realize, you are living life. You can't just make your life dedicated to running. You have to find a balance in what you do. And it's just so important to be able to thrive in the sport.
Yeah, 100%. It definitely is. You can never put everything into one basket in life, and having that variety definitely provides the mental space to be able to bring your best self to training as well, I would imagine. And so I suppose as well, it'd be great to touch on Red S. You mentioned how that was something that's really key and topical. For you, is that something that how did you find your experience of, actually, I'm gonna retry that. And so in terms of Red S, you mentioned having experienced some of the symptoms, and also about how you hadn't really had the education around it. At what stage did you get education on Red S, and when did you start to connect the dots for yourself?
Yeah, so unfortunately, I did not know about Red S until I started experiencing some of the symptoms, which was when my mum, my coach, we all looked into it, and my coach was lucky enough to talk to one of the key educators within Red S, and she came to our club and she did a talk about Red S, how it affects both females and males, how it is one of the key problems within sport, because I didn't realize it, but I was under eating and overtraining, which comes hand in hand into developing into Red S. I lost my periods and I experienced some of the mental symptoms that you do experience with Red S. Luckily, I did not get any of the injuries. That is one of the worst symptoms of Red S, like early onset osteoporosis and stress fractures. So I tackled it whilst the problem was in a small amount, and luckily it did not evolve into something that would massively affect my running. And it's not like a case where, okay, once you've gotten over it, it's done. It's always something that can be an issue. And that's when I started to really, really educate myself about nutrition and the importance of treating your body, because we're not machines. We can't just go out every day for hours and train. You need to have a balance. You need to find nutrition that works for you. And so I'm a massive advocate about Red S, and I think there's there's bad myths around it. It doesn't just affect females, it also affects males. Of course, period stopping is one of the symptoms, but you can see the same symptoms in men from overtraining. And I think it really, really is just one of the biggest issues in running that we need to be educated more about, because I had no idea it was a thing until I was experiencing some of the symptoms.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, it's shocking to hear. And I think also you say how you looked into nutrition. It's again showing there's just not that level of information coming towards you. And especially at the level you're running at, it's still shocking to hear that there isn't even enhanced programs. But it's great to hear that someone did come to your club. And I suppose in terms of maybe someone who's listening, who's looking to maybe educate themselves more about Red S, or just know more about the process of moving on from it. For you, how did you address the situation once you'd identified what was going on?
So one of the first things that we did, my support system, we got a nutritionist in play, because I didn't know that much about food and about how to take care of yourself at the time. So I got my calorie deficiency into a good amount. And I think one of the biggest myths is focusing on your BMI, which I found, was not the best way to assess your weight and, how you are. I found it wasn't the best way to address the problem. So that's what a nutritionist taught me. I also found out in that time that I was anemic. So, it was a big change in my running career at that time. And I'm glad that I addressed the issues, because I feel so much stronger as an athlete. And I didn't even realize that at the time, but I was so weak, and I was not performing the best that I could have been because of this issue that I was experiencing. So I just think it's so important for young athletes to be more lectured about nutrition and about this Red S, because I didn't know anything about it, and I'm annoyed that I didn't know anything about it, because I could have avoided it.
Yeah, rightly so. Those are absolutely crucial words there. It's the not knowing, and it's shocking that there just isn't this knowledge and this awareness, because it's people's bodies, and we can't be damaging our bodies without knowing. And just to provide a bit of context, at what age was it that you started to experience these symptoms, and at what age was it, or how long did it last between you experiencing them and you being able to resolve and take action towards them?
So I'd say that I first started to really experience it when I was 14, which was when I missed my periods, and I didn't have a period for about 2 years. I started having periods when I was 12 or 13, I can't remember. And 2 years is quite a long time to not have it. And there are lots of benefits from having periods. You need the hormone cycle and everything. So I was losing out on that, and it was a massive issue, because it's not even only the physical side, it's also the mental side. You can experience depression and anxiety from having Red S, which doesn't help when you are a student in exam season. So I really had to get it under control. And also a big factor of Red S is the stress. You can miss a period if your body's underloading lots of stress. And at the time it was summer season, worse English schools, GCSEs was happening. It was just a lot for me to take. And so that's when I really started to prioritize my nutrition. I had meal plans, I was getting my calories in. I didn't necessarily cut back on training. I wasn't going full out every day, but I didn't want to cut back on my training by too much, because I believed that if I upped my nutrition to the same amount I was training, that I wouldn't have to lose out on the benefits of my athletics training. And I luckily, got my periods back. I started experiencing less of the symptoms, and I got it under control right before Trinidad. So it was perfect timing, basically. But I would rather have not gone through that hell. And I think if I knew about it from a younger age, I would have been able to avoid that. So I was glad that my club brought in someone to talk about it to the younger athletes, so they don't have to go through that.
Yeah, definitely. And I think, it speaks for itself. You feel better, you address the situation, and then you executed that brilliant performance in Trinidad. And in terms of the time scale between taking action and seeing the greater strength and feeling better in training, how long did that kind of take for you between eating more and then actually be able to feel those benefits?
Yeah, so I would say that there wasn't like a key point where where I realized the difference. It was very gradual, and I wouldn't say that each session, I felt more and more stronger. It was definitely a slow process of recovering from it. And I don't looking back at it now, I realize, how much stronger I feel now that I have got it out of control. Under control. And I think, nutrition is the cure to it, in my opinion. Of course, there's lots of factors about red S, but the main thing is being in a calorie deficit and overtraining. And I didn't realize, in hindsight, I literally did not realize, how much stronger I could have been at the time. And I didn't realize, the toll that my body was taking because of red S. So getting it under control was, the biggest thing in my career, I'd say. It helped me massively during the summer season. I was able to finally PB. And I was able to do well in cross country season, which is just something that never really happens for me. So yeah, I was really happy to get it under control.
Yeah, definitely. It does have a huge impact on how you feel. And I know that in my experience, certainly, it's just you don't realize something's not quite there because you feel strong. You can still perform really well. But it's when you start fueling yourself properly, you're suddenly like, oh, I just don't feel tired like that. There's a sort of tired and another sort of tired. And when you're fueling properly, actually, you feel a bit tired, but you don't feel tired in general or afterwards. And if you want to push, you can easily push your body when you're fueling enough. That's what I found anyway. And so for you as well, you mentioned there having the balance of the GCSEs, the stress and the depression that came alongside it. How did that manifest itself for you mainly, and what sort of impact did it have on you academically, do you think?
Well, I think one of the biggest issues for young athletes is balancing during exam season. I knew it was coming up through all these years. I was dreading it because, it's the worst time for me as a track athlete. It's peak season, and I have to do, a month of exams that I've been prepping for since, year 7. So it was I'm not gonna lie, it was an awful time, but it could have been worse looking back at it. And I think training actually, it helped me get through GCSEs, because after an exam I would go out for a run and I'd just shake off the exam from me. If it went badly, I would just take a breather outside and, experiencing the fresh air. It was great. And I didn't necessarily change my training too much. Of course, I wasn't doing every competition that was coming up on the calendar, but I found a good balance in revising through the day and then going running at night, which sounds like I was losing out on social aspects, which I was a bit, but I did see my friends at athletics, which is always a good thing for me. And I know lots of people that struggled with their performance in track season because of GCSEs or A levels, and it is a massive thing. The mental health side of exams is very difficult to confront, because you are spending like 8 hours sitting down looking at a textbook, which is also one of the reasons why I got a calf injury in February, because I was revising for GCSEs and I wasn't moving my body enough, and I was just sitting in the same position looking at a textbook, which I found, rolling my ankles and using something to play with was better, whilst you're sitting down. So I tackled that, which I'm grateful for, because now I can use that in A levels. But going back to balancing exams and running, I'd say that the main thing is that you do have to prioritize your education. For me personally, because I need something as a backup if going pro doesn't work out. And education to me is such a big thing in my life. I've school's important to me massively, and I'm taking A levels that are quite hard, but I really just want to go to uni and do something that I love and get a job and financial like security. And so that's why I try to find a good balance between racing and revising, because it was doing what I love and then doing what I needed to do hand in hand. So I think the main advice I'd have for people going through that is make a timetable for yourself that you'll stick to. You know, it sounds a bit dull to plan out each day by day, but it was so important for me because I needed to have, you know, some sort of security in my life that I knew that what I was doing on that day. Because revising, you know, 6 to 8 hours a day and then going out for a run, it was hard, but it was needed at that time.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think timetables are the way to go. I know that's something that I've certainly done throughout my school years. And I think it's great you've got that mindset. And as someone who's coming out the other side now, I can say that without a doubt, I'm beyond grateful that I was somebody who did prioritize my education, because I'm now sat here about to start a full-time job. You've got that security, and the job will be for life, and a career in sport is going to have some kind of limit on. So no, but on that note, we had some listeners who wanted to know, what were your future and long-term goals in terms of athletics?
Well, I think it's quite a repeated answer for young
Yeah.
athletes like myself, but I mean, the big dream is to, you know, go pro and go to the international races, you know, like worlds, maybe even the Olympics. I just, you know, I love the sport so much, and to see training pay off in the races I do is just a feeling that, you know, really, I just love it. And it's a bit addictive. So I love like traveling and, you know, competing internationally, meeting new people and experiencing different cultures, which is something that I've been gifted because I do the sport. And you know, going to Trinidad really showed to me what I want to do in life. And I just, you know, I love this sport so much and I want to stick with it, which is why I care so much about nutrition and mental strength and, you know, training. It's because it's all for the big picture, which is to compete at the higher levels and to, you know, try and do the best that you can in this sport. Because, you know, I love it and I want to work hard to be good, basically.
No, rightly so, and absolutely shoot for the highest level possible. And it's great to see you've got that long-term mindset on your head, and that balance just extending forward to propel you onto a trajectory for a successful career, and hopefully as an athlete. And I guess to wrap up with now, in terms of Red S, that being a key area of passion for you and such an important one, what do you think, or what's your opinion on what's the best way to educate people of your age and just in general the future generation of female athletes?
Well, I think that social media now, it's just, you know, so big, it's so widely used, like TikTok. I think that's the best education platform for athletes in general, because, you know, I think that the average age for people using Instagram and TikTok now has, you know, lowered. So it is a platform to reach out to young athletes, you know, which does have its negative sides, of course, using social media at such a young age, but it does happen. And, you know, that's what I want to see when I go onto my For You page. I want to see information about Red S and how to deal with it, because that's what I missed out on when I was younger. And if clubs and coaches can reach out to people that are passionate about it and can talk about it, I think that's so important, especially to the young demographic that will struggle with it because our bodies are changing so much when we go through puberty. I just think it's so important that we get an early grab onto what it is and how it happens, how to treat it and how to avoid it. So I just think it was just so important. I'm so passionate about it because it was such an awful time for me in my running career, and I just really want other athletes to not have to go through that.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's such a shame that people like yourself do have to go through it because of the failings on those who have the knowledge, or those who are essentially leading and guiding athletes through the sport. Okay, and finally, is there anything that you'd like to say, or number one piece of advice, or something that you think people commonly think about you but it's not actually true, that you'd like to share with the world?
Well, lots of people think I'm quite scary, actually, I've found. And if anyone's watching this, you know, I love people reach out. I love making friends in the running community because it's such a great group of people that it's unlike any other sport. I used to be a swimmer and I just prefer the running community, if I'm honest. We can all relate to how much we love the sport and how we want to do well. And, a piece of advice is, like I said, remember the positives of why you started. It should never, ever feel like a chore because you're not doing it for the right reasons. You shouldn't be doing it because you want to win. You should be doing it because you love it. And yeah, basically.
Absolutely. No, well, thank you so much, Phoebe. I mean, there's been so much value in the things you've said, some incredibly insightful points, and it's been great to hear about your journey so far, your story, and hopefully we'll look forward to hearing and following your success over the next few years. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Indira. It's great doing this.
No, great to have you on, Phoebe. So that's it for today. Thanks for listening. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you did, be sure to rate, subscribe, and leave a review. This really helps to get the content out there. And I want to make this podcast the best possible for you. So go follow Fitter, Faster, Happier on Instagram. That's Fitter, Faster, Happier, to leave your questions, comments, and feedback, and for updates and guest requests. All the best for the week ahead, guys. Run happy, live happy, be happy.